Okay, so continuing with the last video, the third fundamental principle was objectivity, and it has IOFI has listed five specific rules concerning the objectivity. Of course, the principle has a broader meaning, so there can be other rules which can be context specific, but these five have to be observed or rather in a more strict manner. So, number one, refuse any gift, favor, or hospitality that would threaten the objectivity of professional judgment. So, again, this is something about the gifts and favors and hospitality that the professional codes, other than the IOFA code, have done a lot of deliberations and documentations and about the gifts. So usually they say that the gifts, insofar as they are customary, they are just like the calendars and diaries that the client sends every month, every year, for example. So these are okay to accept, but if there are some specific gifts, then they have to be considered very carefully. So again, in the broader sense, this would apply here as well. The second important rule it says is that avoid actual apparent conflict of interest. For example, personal or family relationship with a client that would threaten objectivity and professional independence. So, if there is no relationship before at the time of entering into the contract, then it's better to avoid any relationship in so long as the professional contract is in progress. And also, again, the two important things that avoid the conflict of interest and avoid the appearance of conflict of interest as well. So there is no social negative perception created out of any conflict of interest or relationships. So again, this can be a very broad rule. If and there can be a deliberation debate whether this is a rule or is itself a principle, because it has to be interpreted in the context. And there are plenty of cases available where this particular aspect of dilemma has to be considered, and then accountants have to make decisions. So more or less, these are the principles or rules, whatever we label it. They are actually global and universal, which we usually find in all the codes of conducts in of professional bodies, professional accountants. Rule number three, it says that avoid situations that would impair professional independence, such as owning significant shares in a client's firm or other financial interest in the client. So again, the conflict of interest thing to avoid. And number four, it says refrain from engaging in other professional services while auditing a client to avoid loss of objectivity in performing those financial statements audits. So again, specifically for the auditors, right? So usually the professional rules and the regulations also do not allow to engage in consulting services or other services when you are auditing a client. So it's the same thing over here in order to protect the objectivity and avoid any conflict of interest. And rule number five, it says avoid contingent fees, fees which is based on the outcomes, future outcomes, especially something like the based on income or something like this. So this is usually against the Islamic finance code as well, the main principles of Islamic finance as well, and it is also included in this ethical code. The principle number four was the competence and due diligence, and again it listed five different rules over here, right? Number one, acquire academic and professional competence, working knowledge of Sharia aspects of financial transactions, and maintain competence through continuous professional development. So one need to be equipped with the relevant knowledge and skills, and one need to make sure that he is current in those knowledge and skills. Rule number two, refrain from agreeing to perform duties unless sufficiently competent or able to obtain competent advice assistance to perform efficiently. So if I do not find myself competent of completing some contract, then it's better to say no rather than to accept the contract for the sake of revenue and then compromising the quality. Rule number three, it says do high quality work in accordance with Sharia's rules and principles as well as relevant national and international laws, and do not contravene Sharia, that do not contravene Sharia. So again, compliance to the laws and regulations. So again, one need to know what are the laws of the state, applicable regulations under the context. So this is the competence part. And Also the high quality work, doing the high quality work. So this is the perfection part as well, that discharge your responsibility to the in the best possible manner. Number four, develop an integrated plan for performing duties and adopt a quality control program for assistants and subordinates. Now, this is something which the management literature has consistently produced, that a work which is done with planning and the same work done without a plan. So it's always observed and documented that something that is planned well before execution actually results in a much um, higher standards and quality compared to something which is not planned. So again, this has been documented as a rule here, that you have to plan. And the second thing, you have to make sure that the quality is actually secured, and there need to be a sort of a quality assurance program, the quality control program for assistants and subordinate, that whatever work they are doing actually is complying the quality requirements. So this is more formalizing the quality thing. And finally, the ensure that internal reports are complete, clear, and supported by appropriate analysis of relevant and reliable information. So since this code is also applicable to the internal auditors, internal accountants, so they included this role that even if you are an internal accountant, then you have to make sure that whatever reporting you are actually doing to your client, to your employer, to your boss, to your managers, actually includes is complete in all respects, is clear and supported by the appropriate analysis. And this is something which one can do if one has the competency. Principle number 5 was faith-driven conduct, something which is specific to this code, which we cannot find in other codes. So here are listed 8 different principles over here, rules over here. So the first one, constantly be conscious of Allah's surveillance, muraqabah, or self-monitoring. So this is something which which actually establishes a monitoring mechanism which no other code could, no other mechanism could. No CCTV camera, no police, no threats of any kind, no incentives of any kind could produce the impact that this faith actually produces, even if nobody is watching. So the code consciously establishes this, that one has to be mindful of this, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is watching, and so this is mindfulness is actually muraqabah. The second rule, it says that constantly be conscious of accountability before Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala on the day of judgment. So the first one was, although the two are related, the first one was just the consciousness that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is watching, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is knowledgeable of all the things I am doing, all the things I am thinking about. And the second thing is that I have to account for it on the day of judgment. The third rule, be sincere in professional duties, seeking Allah's satisfaction and not submitting to other pressure. Now, this is something again which is very beautiful, very, very effective and beautiful rules, which I think no other mechanism could bring in. Qualities which no other mechanism could bring in professionals and humans. So be sincere to professional duties. So my sincerity is not because of any performance evaluation. My sincerity here is not because of somebody is reviewing my work. My sincerity is not because I want more clients, but I want the pleasure of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the will of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Fourth one, fulfill promises and honor agreements, a fundamental requirement in all dealings, right? So this is again very important, professionally also very important. And I have observed there are people who even if commit by words for meeting on a certain time at a certain place, they do make sure that they arrive well in time, even by a minute. They mind delaying something by a minute if they have committed for something. So this is the excellence, right? So this is the perfection part. But generally the agreements and honors, promises have to be honored. Rule number 5, cooperate with others to enable smooth and efficient performance of professional duties. So again, this is very important, because An accountant, an auditor is usually a very knowledgeable person, is a usually very expert person, and he is on the bridge of communication, on the bridge of certain tasks. So there can be red tapeism, there can be bottleneck um, for the sake of either just the ego or personal satisfaction or sometimes personal interests. So this rule actually mentions that you have to cooperate with others in order to discharge your professional duties. So delaying test sets and just making the things route through me because I know something. My table has files for maybe 10 days and people are following up. So this is something which has to be done away with. Rule number 6: show love and brotherhood for the sake of Allah to enhance cooperation and trust. Again, this is very important in the professional environment. There are usually professional competitions, and sometimes it raises to professional jealousy. So here it says that with the sincerity, you have to raise above your own personal interests. So you have to behave with love and brotherhood with all whom you deal with, and you have to cooperate and you have to trust. Rule number 7: be merciful and kind in dealings, patient in handling professional problems. Right. So again, it's not a machine dealing; it's a human dealing. So you have to be merciful, you have to be forgiving, you have to be kind in your dealings. Um, Professionally, people come across things when the things are not perfect on the part of others. So this is something which is the required, a fundamental requirement of being a Muslim rather than being an accountant. And finally, set a good example for assistant and subordinates. So this is only possible when you admit your mistakes very open-heartedly, uh, and you comply with the requirements of your profession, with the values of your profession yourself. Then only your subordinates actually can follow. And the last principle was the professional conduct as to the technical standards. So the accountants and the auditors have to comply with the accounting and auditing standards issued by AOFI. They have to perform professional duties and services diligently. So somehow we observed it in the competence part as well. Refrain from conduct that jeopardize integrity, objectivity, or independence. Specifically, no distasteful self-promotion, right? So I do not need to reflect myself. I do not need to develop my brand by artificial means. No exaggerated claims, right? Usually accountants are prohibited from advertising their own services usually, but no exaggerated claims that we have done so much, so and so, and all the things that we usually see. Reflection, self-reflection. No deintegrating other accountants. Again, the competition part of thing, that as a Muslim you are not allowed to establish your own interest at the cost of the interest of your brother. So here comes the difference between the capitalist commercial professionalism and the mindful Islamic mindful professionalism. So here you sometimes you compromise your own interest. So if there is a potential contract in which you are bidding, you do not do any practice or make any decisions or behave in a way which is detrimental and which could somehow damage some other potential applicants. So we have seen the example in the traditional Muslim history that sometimes people sacrifice their own self-interest, their own contracts, to just in favor of their brothers. And rule number 4: when replacing another accountant, ascertain reasons for the change of or refusal of appointment and refuse appointment if reasons are unacceptable, especially if the prior accountant was pressured to violate Sharia's or accounting standards. Hold in strict confidence any information disclosed. So I think the last two, principles are something which fundamentally differentiate this particular code to the codes in the mainstream capitalist institutions. Finally, the code enforcement was done back in 1998 and 1999. It was developed in 1998 and enforced in 1999. And it mentions that it applies to the internal accountants, it applies to the internal auditors, and it also applies to the statutory or Sharia auditors and external auditors as well. So now, lastly, some of the differences that have been compiled. That the source of authority, of course, the IOFI, the source of authority is the divine guidance. The basis of compliance is that it's a religious duty. It says that there's the Sharia requirement to develop the professional standards and develop the professionals in order to farz kifaya, in order to meet the requirements of the society. The core principles, actually, the added principle are the legitimacy, which is the Sharia legitimacy, and the faith-driven conduct. So these are the added principles, and the other principles are almost similar. The scope is technical plus religious legitimacy, whereas in the secular course, the scope is only technical and professional. Here, it is what your life is all about. It's not just what your profession is all about. It's what your life is all about. So universality, yes, they are universal, but there is a flexibility in Sharia rulings. So there is a characteristic of flexibility as well. Enforceability, so divine monitoring, right? So enforceability actually in the secular courts is either by the regulators or by the professional bodies, and it has to rely on the secular mechanisms. Whereas the faith-based monitoring is actually far stronger and far resource conservative, because you do not need external monitoring mechanism in so long as the self responsibility and accountability is concerned. Although the mechanism should be there and may be there, but it's much stronger. The flexibility, again, as we mentioned, that is permissible. It's a permanent code and flexible code as well. And usually the professional codes evolve over time. It doesn't evolve in that sense, but it has the flexibility to adopt according to the context. And additional codes can be considered when you are actually opting for the IOFI Islamic code. So that's it. Thank you. And these are some of the key takeaways. Let's go through them. So accounting is for the kifaya, right? The second takeaway is that the code serves dual objectives. It's the ethical awareness among, so two objectives is creating the ethical awareness and establishing the accuracy and reliability of the financial accounting information. There are three layers. There are some fundamental foundations, which has the 7 fundamental qualities. Then we have 6 principles, and then every principle has certain rules. And lastly, enforced by disciplinary bodies, but primarily by the accountant's own faith. So although SSCP or other institutions could come up that this the code or the compliance of this code is essential, but the mainstream enforcing is by the faith. It's the faith driven, because otherwise even the professional accountants, the professional codes cannot be implemented in true spirit, because they can be implemented to the extent that there's a mechanism to monitor the implementation. But over here, the mechanism is far more effective and far more perpetual than the secular mechanisms. So that's it. Thank you very much. This completes our agenda.